Okay, good morning, everybody. We have about a minute to go before we start. Okay, what is a good volume? Too close? Too far? Is this good for me? Thumbs up. A little closer? Okay. I want to make sure we start on time, so a couple of housekeeping items. By the way, I'm Sally Brummel, moderating this morning. There is no break built into this morning because of school in session. There's no place to put us all for that short amount of time. So if you need a break, you can leave at your leisure. If you head out the auditorium doors and go left to the second set of double doors on your right, they are unmarked. There's no number above them. But if you go right into them, there has the break room labeled on the right side and the quiet room on the left side. So all this auditorium, turn left, second set of double doors on the right. I was told the nearest bathrooms are locked, so they are now unlocked. So bathrooms are right outside here. Okay, don't, if you hit the planetarium turn, you've gone too far. So down the hall before you turn to the planetarium. The same hallway, a little bit past the planetarium. Before we get started, I just want to remind our speakers about taking questions, making sure that we'll try and get the microphone to you, but if we aren't able to, speakers, please repeat the question before answering. So with that, we'll get started. Our first presentation is Bob Bonadur from the Milwaukee Public Museum.
Thanks, Sally. Boy, loud. Appreciate it. Wonderful. All right. So just a thank you for being here this morning, and a special thank you to Mark, of course, and Kevin, and everyone who's helped with this conference. It's been wonderful I don't know, it's been great so far. We're halfway through, and it's just been a great conference. So I knew it would. So this is me. I'm Bob Bonadur. I'm the planetarium director at the Milwaukee Public Museum. It's kind of a strange planetarium. It was built as an IMAX dome. So we have a nice 30-degree tilt, so we tell all our stargazers, you know, you're on a hillside, and you're looking up at the stars, and it's a very steep hill. I love to take pictures, just a couple sunset pictures from our house, and the next one is a bunch of retired planetarium people are not here. Some of you know these guys. We do a bike trip. These are planetarium directors, retired planetarium directors, except for me. You might recognize Jeff Holt in there, but we do a bike trip every summer, and we just have a great time. So it's we've been doing it for years, and I don't know. I'd just like to share that. Bart Benjamin's not here. He usually comes to the conference, so bummer. This is where I hope to move in 4 years. I've been showing this picture. Some of you may have seen it on my phone, but we're going to build a $240 million new museum and planetarium. And this is the conceptual design by Enid Architects, who built the Shanghai Astronomy Center. And the planetarium is going to be down on that kind of bluish cove there on the lower left. That's not a window. It's going to be some sort of stellar suggestion, galactic, if you will, that the planetarium is right there in the corner. So it's modeled after an estate park, some rocks that look like that. The architects took a tour of the state. And anyway, it's just a beautiful building. We've raised $140 million. We got 100 to go. And we hope to open in 2026. So my talk here today is stars in their eyes and what is in their brains. What is in our audience? We have to know our audiences. One of the biggest things, right, as planetarium teachers, you know, fourth graders, as many of you know, are very different than fifth graders, and all the way, you know, through the spectrum of our audience. So I just wanted to do a simple survey. This is not. It's very simple, as you're going to see. Look what we do to suggest to get them to fill out the survey here, because people generally don't want to fill out surveys. At least I don't. And so we ask them to take a minute, maybe two, and to do this survey. And so here's the survey. It's real simple. What's your favorite space topic? Mark only one. Do you think there's life beyond Earth? And intelligent life beyond Earth. So we want to get people to know the difference between the two. And then this one, what type of show do you like better? We do both a live show, current stargazing, and we do planetarium films or topics, a canned show, if you will. And then we asked them, just curious about this whole Milky Way thing, because no one has seen, a lot of people have never seen it before. And then just some basics, again, fun survey. And then we wanted to do an open-ended question. What do you love about space? It's kind of the same as the first question, but we wanted to draw it out a little bit more. And then, what's the weirdest thing we've discovered about space? And it was interesting. And then I didn't want to get into the whole demographics. Are you a kid, a young adult, or a wise adult? And just kind of to see where they are in the spectrum. So this is generally after they've seen one of our shows in the planetarium. That's the shows that we're playing this summer, or our live show, which we just call Wisconsin Stargazing. So they've seen a show. The survey's up there at the after it. So I'll start with the kids' results first. We had 80 respondents for the kids. We had about 200 total. And the favorite thing, Northern Lights, is at the top of the list. Black holes and planets you might expect to be up there, but I was kind of surprised that the aurora was number one. And just to note it, look where eclipses rank. Eclipses don't sell. I've been telling, at least the word doesn't sell to our audiences, I don't think. So we're going to make a show, hopefully, that will lend some more pizzazz to the eclipse. So they believe in life, and some made the distinction between life and intelligent life a little bit. And you can see, right down the middle in terms of the live show and the canned show, the film. And of course, we've been debating this forever. What's the better show? And there's really no answer to that. There really isn't. Each is good. It's got to be a good show, whether it's live or whether it's a film. And look at how many people have never seen the Milky Way in kids. Look at that. It's huge. And the kids rate Earth number one in terms of the. I just had to put, someone had to put the comment with Uranus. Hee hee. They actually wrote that. Favorite constellations, as you might expect, Big Dippers, the Zodiac, and a few tokens up there. Someone put the Fox of Elliptica. That's kind of wild. Kids love, so this is the open-ended question, remember? Open-ended, what do you like? You can look at these results in the proceedings bar. We don't have time to go over it all. And I know some adults, parents were coaching the kids on the answers. Okay, I get it. Kids not gonna write antimatter, but I know they're doing that. Tardigrades can live there. Some kids know it. The precocious kids are gonna know that. Mars sunsets are blue. The cow jumped over the moon is, we do that in seeding slides. We have the cow come out and jump over the moon while they're seeding and stuff, and they just love it. So, all right. So the young adults, 45 total respondents. Northern Lights, number one again. Different age group, or how they identify it. Eclipses got 3 votes this time. In these life questions, that's the national average for, what do you think the national average for who believe in life is in America? Anyone know? It's about 65% based on nationwide surveys that think life is out there. So these are higher, but they're visiting a planetarium. Again, the live show versus the planetarium film is equal, pretty much, and a lot have never seen the Milky Way. Mars is now the favorite planet. Earth took a second place. And again, Zodiac and the Dippers. What do you love about space? The open-ended question. No sound, no one can hear you scream. So you get these things that they picked up, a planet made of diamonds, all of this. It's just kind of to know where they're coming from. So I wanted to just kind of in the survey to document, because we don't get a chance to always talk to our audience, at least we don't. We're in a big public museum, natural history museum, so we don't get to talk to them a lot. And it's the way to kind of just talk to them and see what's in their brain. People still want to know why Pluto's not a planet. So. All right, the wise adults. Northern Lights, number one again. We're a northern state, Wisconsin, pretty high in life. We got some God responses. Sorry, there are no aliens, you know. I don't know if I put their exclamation point in there. But we got lectured a little bit on that, which is fine. I mean, totally fine. The Milky Way, obviously, a lot of adults have seen it a lot more. So nothing to it. And Earth goes back to number one, and Saturn takes second place. 5 minutes? Okay, thanks. So, you know, typical answers, what they love about it, so vast, so big. You know, and we do this all the time in our shows. Those first three you could almost lump into one. I mean, so not much different there. I love the humans haven't screwed it up yet. So this is kind of what they wrote. You know, the smells like raspberries, I had to Google that. And there was a thing. There was an article. It was a science article. That something out there in space smelled like raspberries. Because like that just couldn't be thrown in there. So someone remembered that. And now I can't even remember what it was exactly. It smelled like raspberries. But Pulsar is more accurate than time watches. Because you know, our audience is going to know some pretty cool facts that we might not even be aware of. And so we always have to remember to be humble. I love that. You take far too much liberty presenting this fact to us. It's not true. They were talking about aliens, and we didn't even say aliens exist. But that was a rebuke on that. So what did we learn to kind of sum all this up? Pluto's still a big deal, ranked very high. Not many kids see the Milky Way. Planetariums are essential for that, to provide that experience. Northern Lights, number one. Why? Maybe partly because we're a northern state, partly because in our live stargazing shows, we tend to always show the aurora. I mean, we have a thing that we show for, 30 seconds or so, and sometimes we'll go to the sun and show a CME. People still like the big good mystery. Thanks, universe. Live versus recorded, still a tie game. Because I did a survey years ago, and same result. It was 50-50 on the type of show that they like best. And you can see the life is very high. Visitors know the darndest thing. Zippers and Zodiac are the favorite constellations. Saturn is still big. And what's the number one? People still love the Earth. I know the young adults, but overall, if you take all 200 responses, Earth was rated the favorite planet. So it's a good thing. How far? 2 minutes. Okay, I think we're about done. Yeah, well, I put that in there, sorry. Do they love it enough? So, all right. So I think that is it. So thank you. Questions? Anyone? Martin? No, if you didn't hear Martin, he's comparing it to someone who hasn't visited a planetarium. I'd love to see those answers. That's a good idea. I'll contact my research staff, like I have one. Anyone else? And how old I am, so one of my younger employees said, why didn't you just do a QR code and have them do it on their phone? And I'm like, which was a great idea, but here I am counting all the papers and everything. Yeah, one more. Will we change our live shows? A little bit. I mean, we'll keep showing the aurora. I mean, I give my educators a latitude. Our live show goes from sunset to sunrise. And you got to show the moon, the planets, and Big Dipper and North Star. But then they have a whole screen where they can do anything they want. They can do the meteors, the aurora, they can go to deep space and come back, they can do anything they want. So I've told them to, do the aurora, because sometimes I know they're not doing it and I can't be there to watch them. And I think we all pander to that a little bit, because all of our shows we ask, halfway through the show, we ask the audience, what do you want to see? So we don't sit behind the mic and we show them stuff and then we ask them, what do you want to see? And Pluto comes up all the time. And we zoom up Pluto, which has been near Saturn.
Well, let's give Bob another round of thanks.
Thanks, Allie.
And the next presenter is Jessica Trucks from the Abrams Planetarium.
Hello. So today I'm going to be talking to you about captioning options in the dome. And so captioning is important to make our planetariums accessible, and we want to make it ubiquitous. So we want to get captioning in every planetarium. And in the past at GLPA, there's been a few presentations on captioning options, whether they be papers or posters. But without captioning, many in the deaf and hard of hearing community will only have a purely visual experience. And then they lose the context of the planetarium shows. So how did we execute this study? So we spent a week at Cal Academy's Morrison Planetarium testing 3 different captioning options. We spoke with 10 individuals who were part of the deaf and hard of hearing community, but we also talked to 2 ASL interpreters. And so we ran the show twice on different days. And for day 1, we did a handheld device. There's like a small phone or a large phone or a small tablet. And we talked to 1 person that was part of a deaf hard of hearing community and 1 ASL interpreter. In day 2, we tested Epson glasses, which are accompanied with a tablet. And on that day, we had our highest number of individuals. We talked to 6 individuals who are part of the deaf hard of hearing community, and we also talked to our ASL interpreter. And on day 3, we tested captioning on the dome for the big astronomy show. And we talked to 4 individuals and the ASL interpreter. So day 1 was a handheld device. So there are certain pros and cons to a handheld device. The pro is you can change the size and location of the text on the device. You can also caption in multiple languages, which is important. You also have the ability to move the device as you're watching. Granted, moving the device as you're watching is also one of the cons because it makes your arms and your shoulders hurt. And it also takes away from looking at the show a little bit because you're looking down at the device and then looking back up at the show, which they're losing part of that immersive experience as they're watching. And there can be some uncertainty on where to hold the device, whether you have it down or you try to have it up as you're watching. Some other comments that they had made is they'd like to have something to hold the device for them, that maybe they could sit on their chair and still have it up in front of their face as well. Day 2 was the Epson glasses, and there's a picture of the Epson glasses up in the corner. They're a little bit bulky. But the captions move wherever you're looking with the Epson glasses, which one of our individuals found she really liked because she was able to look around and the captions followed where she was watching the planetarium show. And you can also caption in multiple languages, including ASL. The con was that we had a high fail rate during our test. So in our second show, 2 out of 5 devices did not work. And so those individuals either had to use the tablet that was attached, and one actually just gave up on the tablet and just spent the time watching the show. So he lost the context of the show. And they don't really work well with individuals who already wear glasses because they have to sit on the bridge of your nose. Otherwise, you have to keep adjusting them as you're watching, which they found very inconvenient. They also, I don't know if you noticed, but they have a very large black frame, including black frames in the middle. And so it was blocking some of their view of the screen. Also, right here in the center is the window for the captioning, and it also was a little bit dark, And so individuals mentioned that they were having a hard time seeing the images behind, so they kept having to move the glasses. And one individual said that the glasses sort of made him feel like a robot. And so it was making him feel kind of exposed and uncomfortable. The third day, we tested captions on the dome. This is the captioning option that they are most familiar with from watching videos, as well as some of the movie theaters. And you also have the ability to have those captions so other individuals who don't identify as DHH can actually use the captioning as well. In one of our surveys, someone mentioned that they liked the option of the captioning because it allowed them to understand what someone was saying if they had an accent. But the con for this, you can only caption in one language at a time. And when we tested, they were white captions with a small black outline. And the captionings were slightly small. And so the white color made it easy to read when we were in dark scenes in big astronomy, but when we were over the landscape of Chile or some of the cutouts of the telescopes, it made it really hard to read. And we had the captions at the bottom of the screen, which most of the action in the show is going on in the middle or the top of the screen. And so having to look down constantly to the bottom of the screen was causing them to lose that immersive experience again. So other comments for making this captioning option better, since this was the captioning option that most of them stated they preferred, at least in a couple of the shows. They prefer larger captions. They'd also prefer them to be in a different color. So they suggested yellow or amber captions would be the best for any kind of background. But also having the captions in more than one place. So having them maybe on the bottom and on the top, outside of the field of view. And again, they would prefer captions in yellow or amber. They said that white is too abrupt and slightly harsh. But they also stated that captioning should never be in red. One individual mentioned that it was an angry color. And the captioning should be large enough to be easily read, because there are some in the DHH community who are also slightly visually impaired. So having the captioning large enough so that they can read it easily. And they also mentioned, one of the interpreters specifically mentioned that captioning should also be available in ASL, because especially the younger population of the DHH community are not entirely literate in English as it's their second language. So having that option would be a bonus. And also during our test, there is a safety briefing. Morrison Planetarium has a large tilt and stairs. And so we had ASL interpretation for our interviews, so we also utilized them during the show for the introduction and safety briefing. But if you mentioned that if there hadn't been an ASL interpreter, they would have been completely lost and not known what the safety procedures were and how to exit the planetarium. So having that option maybe in a video that they'd be able to watch would be appreciated. But they also stated that pacing in making a planetarium show is important. So there are breaks in the show where they can know that they can look around since the captioning has dropped off the screen. Having a consistent roll of captioning is not desired because then they have no way of looking at the show. So pacing is important. But all individuals appreciated that captioning was even an option. Many of them had been to planetariums before, but captionings weren't available. And so it turns into, as I said, a purely visual experience. 5 out of the 12 said captioning on the dome was their preferred option, but anything is better than nothing. And then most of our individuals agreed that those yellow or amber captions would be best. And captioning on the dome would probably be the easiest for most domes to implement, as you don't have to buy devices. These are very preliminary results, mostly on the pros and cons. A more in-depth analysis on the DHH interviews is forthcoming. We also have more information from the surveys that we have yet to analyze. We also did observations and a few focus groups with the blind, visually impaired community as they were testing our hands-on activities for big astronomy, as well as they were in the show. So you can look for future results or past results for big astronomy research at bigastronomy.org/research, and there's a QR code. I also wanted to mention that coming up in April of 2023, there is a Big Astronomy Day community event. So the film is free or inexpensive to license, and it's available in English, Spanish, German, and French. You can also utilize the hands-on activities and a guest speaker on this day or during the month of April, in person or virtual. And if you would like some help setting up guest speakers, you can go to the link on the bottom of the screen or the QR code that's available there. And institutions who participate will be entered to win a solar telescope. And who doesn't love a solar telescope? Also, if you participate, please feel free to use the hashtag #BigAstronomyDay. And I believe that's my last slide. Yes, it is.
Thank you, Jessica. We do have a few minutes still for questions. Anybody? I can run. We'll start here.
In terms of the colors, we do open captioning for every show. We just don't wait for requests, and we have no complaints about it. So people love the open captioning, or they don't. And we use white, but we put a red, I know red, outline around it, and we made the outline thick. And we did a lot of experimenting, and that works for every scene. You can read it. So the outline's got to be kind of thick, and it just works perfect. So we have no problems in the changing scenes. So it's just. Okay.
I'm just curious if you've done any research yet or will be doing any research regarding live captioning with these options. We have a minimum of a 20-minute live portion to every single one of our shows, or the entire show is live. Including Big Astronomy, we have a live portion for, so.
Yes, so we have not done any live captioning research. I believe Abrams does have the possibility. So we are planning on maybe doing some testing with some of the suggestions that were made at Abrams. And so that could be a possibility for those tests, but we have not gotten there yet.
Thank you.
One question in the back.
Not really a question, just wanted to say that this was super helpful. We're working on the exact same thing, so the general survey of the different options is really helpful, so thank you.
Any other questions? Yes? I'll say as I'm making my way down there without running, we have a cart board, a live caption system. It does cost some money. We have to reserve it, but we'll do that once a month, so that allows us to do the entire presentation, the live part, the instructions, et cetera. So finding a way to invest in one, because it requires a person to come with it too. But that's worth it to get to that part of the show.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you for also mentioning the need for pauses in shows, because I think every planetarium show needs that. We have so many shows out there right now that are just constant narration, and people, even if they are not impaired, need spaces in order to be able to absorb and also take in a lot of the larger imagery, and also to create pauses when subjects change, when people know that you're done with one particular thought and moving on to another. So I applauded that, and I just really wanted to add that I think all planetarium shows need that.
Yes. And that was a big point in the interviews, is the pacing. And they stated that the Big Astronomy show, because that's the one that they watched with captions, was great with the pacing because it allowed stops and starts.
Any last questions? All right, well, let's give Jessica a big thanks. Oh, one, can you yell? We are actually out of time. I'm
Okay.
sorry to cut that
All
off,
right.
but, you know, if,
We can
yeah, let's talk
it
about it.
later.
I think a lot of people would have that question too. Thanks for asking that, Carter. All right, so now we have Waylena McCauley and Wayne Foster for their presentation.
All right, can everybody hear me okay? All right, I'm Waylena, and this is Wayne Foster. I'm at the Starkle Planetarium in Champaign, Illinois. Wayne, you are from?
I am at the CERN Earth Space Center in River Grove, Illinois.
All right, so last spring we had a pretty fun event. We presented a program on birding, local birds in our area at our planetarium in Champaign, and we domecast it to the planetarium at Cernan. So yeah, it's all up there. Okay, so we're gonna look at why we did the birds, why we did the dome casting, and how we set it up, how it worked, and yes, we're doing it again. All right, so we've been looking for a non-astronomy type lecture type program to do that wasn't a PowerPoint. We wanted something that used the dome. And many of you have met my husband, Jeff Bryant. Hands up if you've met him. Ah, okay, all right. Most of you know him. He is awesome. I don't know if he's watching live, so hopefully I'm not misrepresenting him here. He does bird photography as a hobby. He's really good at it, and he's got history of planetarium involvement. He worked at the planetarium at the old planetarium at Ball State. Yes, my husband, and he was scheduled to do a talk in 2020. We were calling it Warbler Dome, and of course it got canceled because 2020 got canceled. So why dome casting? So in dome casting, what you have is you have all the assets, the digital media, the scripts, the interface, everything is downloaded to the participating domes, but then it is run from the host dome. Yeah, all that. So we've been wanting to do it, and they've been wanting to do it at Cernan. And when I said on social media, I don't know if it was Facebook or what, I was like, yay, Warbler Dome, birds are back on the menu. Well, no, not really like that, but yes, Warbler Dome. And then Chris McCall, who's right there, she said, can we dome cast, can we dome cast? And Waylena and Jeff are like, I don't know, that's kind of complicated. But then Jeff was like, wait, but Wayne's there, Wayne knows birds. He was worried that somebody on the other end might, they might have bird questions or something, and we ended up working it out okay. And Eric Johnson, who is sitting here in the room somewhere, I don't know. Eric, where are you? Okay, so he's he's there. He's like, yeah, heck yeah, we're gonna do this. All right, so here's how we set it up. I set up terrain to fly to different parks and preserves in the area, and we changed the viewing angle because our viewing angle, we have a nice flat dome, so we make everything nice and shallow, but I wanted it to look good in both domes, and so we did a lot of testing with us asking Wayne, okay, how's that look? And we came up with, I think, what was a good compromise. I knew that Jeff would not be able to use a laser pointer because they wouldn't be able to see what he's looking at, so I created outlines in Blender, of course. Had to mention Blender in there somewhere. What we did was we displayed 6 bird photos at a time. More than that, it was just too much. And Jeff wanted to be able to open them up, say, hey, let's enlarge this one to talk about it some more. And again, we did testing to make sure. And the testing was pretty fun when we had Jeff and Wayne on there because Jeff wanted to talk more with Wayne about the birds than actually practice for it. I set up an interface that would let me skip around if there was Q&A afterwards. So I know it looks very complicated, and I forgot to do the math. It's 36 times 6. That was how many pictures there were. It was a lot.
Near 200, yeah.
Yes, and Jeff makes his pictures available on Flickr with a license. Credit him, and you can use those pictures. So anybody can use these bird pictures. Let's see. Oh yeah, audio was an issue. The dome casting setup was not really good for audio, but we were both set up for Zoom, and we set that up as a test, and it's like, holy cow, Wayne, you sound like you're right here in my dome. It was really cool, and so that worked, and we decided not even to pursue anything else for audio. It was a secret Zoom session. It worked great. Yeah, so that is how it went. We charged admission for our showing of it because we do have lecture series, so we sort of used that umbrella for it. And it was a weekday, and we didn't do a lot of promotion for it, but we did a little bit. And, you know, we had 36 in attendance. It was not that bad at all. I was very pleased. And Eric cashiered to make it happen. And, well, yeah, so how many did you have?
Yeah, we had about 12. We also did not advertise it very strongly. It was our sort of dome casting test, find out how things worked. So we told a few people there is actually a bird watching class at Triton College, which really surprised me. So we let them know, and a few of those students came by and some other people in the community. And we ended up with about 11 or 12. One of them might have been a coat. I wasn't sure. It was kind of dark.
Jeff had a great time with it. Let's see. Chris was out of town, but she was checking in on us with through texting, and she said, "Hey, you should do it again next year." And Jeff was like, "Well, okay, but can I add new pictures?" I was like, "Well," I said, "as long as you swap out some of them, because that was a lot of bird pictures." He didn't talk about all of them, but he wanted people to be able to see the different types of areas, forest, wetland, all these different types of locations, and what similar birds you would find in those areas. That bird right there is not in one of our parks. He drives around to find those in the winter. There's a network of birders that, of course, share their snowy owl sightings. Jeff's up for doing this one. We'd like to invite people to join in. Definitely we can do it if you're D6, because we're D6 and we're still going to be D6 in the spring. And we're working on ways to make it work with D7. There are just some language changes in how the image textures are assigned and such. So we're working on that. We're going to figure it out. And we're hoping to get Wayne to do one in the future as a dome cast. But I believe you're also working on setting up something just for your birding.
Yeah, so the great thing about this is we're both in Illinois, but these birds are for central Illinois. But a lot of the same birds are going to be around Chicagoland. There are some that don't show up as much near where we are as they do down in central Illinois. So I would like to do one for the Chicagoland area. And the great thing about the way this dome casting works is I can get all of the scripts and everything that Waylena had put up and use those to model my talk, just changing out the pictures with my pictures or Jeff pictures of birds from the area, things like that, and talk about what you'll see around there. And other people can do that too, so we can turn this into something that everyone can use for their specific area. Have a localized birding convention for each planetarium would be great.
Yeah, originally I was going to do like all skies of the different parks and location areas, but I didn't have them for all the seasons, and Jeff was really particular about, well, I don't want to show a spring bird with its fall. It's like, really? Oh my goodness, these are birds. So I wanted the emphasis to be on his photos for this. Here's the contact information. There is Jeff's Flickr. He updated it last night, and that's where I got all the extra bird pictures. My favorites of his pictures are the ones where they're staring at the camera like they're going to say, like, "Hey, buddy, give me your lunch money," or something. Or where they're like this one, singing the song of their people. And I'm going to hand this over to Wayne because...
Yeah, so this specific bird, this is an indigo bunting. It's a very bright blue bird. And it's one of my favorite birds because this is the bird that got me into bird watching. I was just taking a walk in a forest, and this bright flash of blue flew right in front of my face, and I needed to figure out what it was. And it started this whole going down the rabbit hole, looking into what could this blue thing possibly be. Figured I was an indigo bunting, and then I was hooked. I just had to identify every bird I saw after that. And so this is the bird that got it started for me.
Our first year in our house, we had an indigo bunting. We had to look it up, and then what I think pulled us in more was one day we looked out, and there were 12 of these strange birds that were interested in the same seeds as the cardinals, but they were red and black and white, and so of course they were the grosbeaks, the red-breasted grosbeaks, and they were everywhere. So that really sort of nudged us into that direction. So definitely come talk to us, give us your ideas. It's a lot of fun, and we were surprised at how well it worked out. And also, if you don't have a Digistar 6 or 7, but you have a neighbor you could drive to and do that, because honestly, the thing that got me interested in dome casting in the first place was all the times I drove to Peoria to see the dome casts from the Adler to the Dome Planetarium in Peoria. And Jeff and I enjoyed doing that so much, so we certainly wanted to see what we could do with that same kind of technology. And I think that wraps it up, but, oh, we have 5 minutes? Yeah. Oh, I did talk.
5 minutes
really
for
fast.
Q&A, so let's see those hands.
Wayne, on your end, was there anything that you want to talk about the testing?
Oh, sure. So yeah, like Waylena said, just to fill in a little bit of time here, the testing, we did a lot of testing. Most of it was just Jeff and I talking about birds and the birds that we saw and the photos that we take and stuff like that, which was a lot of fun. But there were some issues. There was a bit of a lag on the audio end, and like Waylena said, we kind of pivoted and switched to doing audio through Zoom, which solved that pretty well. But for the next talk, I'm sure we'll do a lot more testing, see if that's still the most viable option, especially if we get any of you interested in joining in with us. There might be a different way to do that, so everyone is kind of on the same page and help eliminate that lag a little bit. But that was really the only issue that we had. Everything else seemed to work perfectly well. And like Waylena said, Jeff couldn't use a laser pointer to point out the birds. It helped that I knew what the birds were a little bit. We had practiced beforehand, so I can point out stuff that he was talking about that people might not be able to see on our end a little bit better. So the important thing here is practicing it a lot is going to help. And even if you don't know anything about birds, if we do a couple practice sessions beforehand, you'll know enough to be able to point that stuff out. But yeah, we'd love to get more people involved in this. And you don't have to be in Illinois or that area. These birds are mostly found throughout the Midwest or all over the United States. So we would be happy to have you join in with that. So does anyone have any questions?
This is not a question about the dome casting or anything like that. I need a bird expert because I was asked a question a week ago. Why do geese, swans, flamingos sleep on one leg?
That is a great question. I am by no means a bird expert. I just like to watch them because they're weird little dinosaurs. And that might have something to do with it, but it is, I think, you know, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is mostly a resting thing. They are able to kind of lock their knee and stand on the one leg and the other one can rest. And they do switch back and forth. But I don't know exactly if that is the only reason why or the main reason why. That's just what I remember reading when I had the same question, because it is weird seeing birds just all stand on one leg.
I came in partway through, so I'm not sure if you spoke about this earlier, but I'm curious if you have an angle in your show about fatal light awareness protection. This is concerning birds and light pollution.
Yeah, so we didn't really talk about that. Yeah, when they
Yeah, we didn't really talk about that. There was just different locations, but I'm going to mention that to Jeff because one of the locations that he's featured is the Middle Fork, which is now a dark sky location. So I'm going to ask Jeff if he can work something in on that because that's a good idea.
Yeah, and just to add to that, in Champaign, Central Illinois, there is a lot less light pollution than where I am in Chicago. That is a bigger problem in the Chicagoland area with birds, especially with navigation. It happens to geese a lot where they end up staying there too long, and it causes issues with the migration patterns. So when I do a Chicago-based show, that will be something that I point out and talk about, is that we need to do some light pollution conservation efforts, not only to help us see the stars, but also to help with the wildlife. Not just birds, but all wildlife can be affected by that.
All right, we have just about a minute left, so for the transition to the next person, I do have one last question here in the front.
It's not really a question, but birds is one topic for dome casting. We would like to find other topics for collaboration with middle-sized domes all over the place. So birds is just a starting point. maybe there's some other cool thing that you'd like to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So birds for us, because Jeff and I are both avid birders, was kind of the natural topic for us to do. But it's a way to get other content into the dome, not just space content, and birds was a great way to do that. But we are interested in not only doing birds again, but also doing all sorts of other topics. If you want to do something about plants or whatever, cars, I don't know, we'll figure it out. So anyone has any ideas, we're happy to do that.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, let's thank Waylena and Wayne one more time. And now let's welcome Shannon Schmoll and John French to the podium for their talk.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon Schmoll.
And I'm John French.
All right. And we're going to be talking about a new show that we produced at Abrams Planetarium called Living in Balance on Anishinaabe Star Knowledge. And you will be able to see the whole show tonight as part of the Full Dome Showcase. So please go check that out, and you'll hear about how you can get it at the end of this.
I think we're the first one.
And we're the first one at 8 o'clock, so you don't have to wait. Come check us out. So this is a collaborative project that we did with local Anishinaabe folks in Michigan. For those of you who might not know, the Anishinaabe people are indigenous people, different culturally and linguistically related groups in the Great Lakes region throughout the U.S. and Canada. It includes the Odawa, the Potawatomi, and the Ojibwe peoples. And so we worked on this project with a bunch of different people. It sort of started off with conversations between myself and Dr. Beth LaPonce, who is formerly of MSU and our Communication Arts and Sciences College. She is a game designer and has gone back into industry. But she and I talked. We wanted to do something for a really long time, and we finally made it happen. So the sort of general model that we followed with this was that this was very much an Indigenous-led project. Our role was really that of steward, so we helped kind of take the assets and turn it into a show and kind of give feedback on how this should work within a dome. But our role, but everything else was very much led by Indigenous folks. So Beth created all the art. The art came out of a VR game that she created called Through the River of Space-Time. So go check out her website. She's got a bunch of really cool stuff. And she also wrote the original script. The show was also heavily features Anishinaabewin, which is the language, particularly the Eastern dialect. There's also a Western dialect. And so Aaron Dokum is a speaker and teacher of Anishinaabewin, and so he reviewed the language as well as was the narrator. And he's also the director of the Nokomis Learning Center in Okemos, Michigan, which is right next door to East Lansing, where MSU is. And then Alphonse Penawanaquet is a elder and speaker of Anishinaabewin as well, so he reviewed the language and gave his blessing that the show is ready to go out into the world. We also worked with Dr. Annette Lee, who's based out of Minnesota, and she reviewed all of the star knowledge. You might be familiar with her in the Native Sky Watchers program. She does a lot of really wonderful work on preserving Indigenous star knowledge as well. J.P. Chalikoff, he was the sound recordist, so he got all the recordings of the narration from Aaron and worked with him. Jordan Thomas, a.k.a. Exquisite Ghost, provided the music. John did all the Digistar programming and made it look beautiful. And I was mostly there to make sure things got done. And I also reviewed things to be like, let's maybe move this here so we're not jumping between two different seasons in the narrative. But that was the extent of what I did. But like I said, we are the stewards of this in that we are getting it out there. If you want it, you can talk to us. But this was not led by us. This came again out of conversations between me and Beth. She helped out a group of students that we worked with. We've done a talk on this whole project before, but students created this interactive Ojibwe constellation exhibit for our lobby, and Beth helped them out and did some of the art for that, and so we're like, we want to make a show, so we finally made a show. So we went to the Michigan Space Grant Consortium, and they gave us $5,000 to make the show. We got another $5,000 from Communication Arts and Sciences at MSU. Beth and I gave our time to this, and so for about $10,000, we were able to make this show because we used a lot of great Digistar programming. But that included time for John, as well as stipends for all of our advisors on the show, so Aaron, Alphonse, and Annette. The narrative itself focuses a lot on the Anishinaabe constellations, and one of the things that I think really stands out about our show is we at no point mention Western constellations. They are presented as their own knowledge and valid form of knowing and science. And so, and throughout the narrative, the values of living a good life and living in balance with nature is a theme throughout it. We go through every season of constellations, and there are some stories that are shared, but not all of them are allowed to be shared depending on the circumstances of the environment outside. So, so you'll see some things don't have art associated with them because you're only supposed to talk about it when there's ice on the ground or something like that. So we do not, so it is, that's how we talk about the constellations. And then also the moon names are talked about. So the names of the moons, so the Bear Moon, the Maple Sugar Moon, the Ricing Moon, these are just a few of them that are in the show. These are the names that are based on the observations in the environment. So that's been shifting relative to the Western calendar because of climate change. And so that is also something that we discuss about this relationship of the names and the observations, and how there are observations of the environment that are reflected in a dynamic and living source of knowledge. And like I said, we do have Anishinaabewin, the Eastern dialect, featured in the show. And the names of everything is always presented first in Anishinaabewin if English is shown at all. And it's always, English is always showed underneath. It is largely in English, the narrative, but the names of everything is in Anishinaabewin. And there are two dialects, like I said. There's also a Western dialect, which is, I think, the more widely spoken one, and it's what's spoken more in Minnesota. So we would like to see a Western dialect version of this made. So I know I've already talked to some of you about that. John, your turn.
Okay, well, I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but I did all the Digistar programming for it, and I did it. I don't know, what else do I need to say about it? They gave us the audio, and it was really just some separate little wave files, and I think they must have used
12 minutes.
the whole show? What?
The whole narrative with the audio files.
The narrative, and it was, what's that, Audacity. I guess I had to download Audacity, because I think that's what they used to make it. And it was some Audacity files, and I don't usually use Audacity, so I had to take it into that, export it into a different audio thing, and then they had music, but they didn't specify what music went with what thing, so I just thought, well, this sounds good with that, and so I put it all together. I don't know.
John is downplaying what he did. We were given a 12-minute straight narrative, like just straight read-through of the audio.
Yeah, there wasn't any pauses or anything.
Yeah, he added pauses in to stretch this out into a full 25-minute show. He took all the art, he created these beautiful effects here. So if you see the art, this is all art from Beth, but John turned those into panoramas, and the flowers grow, and he animated it, and it's gorgeous. So John did a lot of great work.
Yeah, and well, wait until you see it before you applaud. I don't know if it's really that great. I mean, it's good. But I will say that so we did it in Digistar, and if you have a Digistar, I have the files, and we can share that with you. We don't want to put it on the cloud, on the Digistar cloud, because we'd like to kind of know who's running the show and stuff like that. And if you don't have a Digistar, I did save out all of the frames, and I can share with you the frames, but I'll admit that I'm not real happy with the way that Digistar saves the frames out. It doesn't look as good as if you have a real Digistar. So either get a Digistar or if you want, I'll give you the frames, and then we
They're
can
not paying
we can do
us.
that. What's that?
They're not paying us.
Okay. All right. I don't know. Do I have anything else to say? I don't think I have anything else to say.
Go see it.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
thank
See
you,
it. See
Jen.
it tonight.
Yeah. And then I do want to share some of the responses that we got. We didn't do any sort of formal interviews with anyone, but we did do 2 showings for Indigenous groups and whoever they wanted to invite. And the response was overwhelmingly positive. People were really excited. Many people felt that it was very powerful to see their star knowledge presented in a science institution. There are some people who weren't fully aware of their star knowledge, and there were many people who were really glad to bring their children because that's not something that they had when they were growing up, and so they were really glad to be able to share that with them. And moving forward, we plan on showing the show for free to any Indigenous group that comes in. We are running it as a public show right now. We are still charging tickets for the general public, but any Indigenous group that wants to see it will get to see it for free. And we are requesting that anybody else who does that, if you can, to follow suit on that as well. And it is free. Or if we really need to send you a hard drive, we might charge you for that. But otherwise, it's free, and pretty much we've been sending it on WeTransfer to whoever has asked for it already, and I think that's been working fine. So it's free, and you can download it and just email us at abrams@msu.edu. We will send you a package that includes the poster, the educator guide, and John will get you the correct files, Digistar or frames, if you'd want it. So like John said, we've got it. If you have a Digistar, we'll send you the scripts. If not, we'll get you the frames. And this is a Creative Commons no derivative. So we ask that you not change it, but outside of that, it is free for you to use. You can charge admission fees if that is something your dome needs to do. Again, we ask that you offer it to Indigenous groups for free if that is something you can do. And the main area where we are interested in a different version would be to do a version in the Western dialect. Thank you.
Thank you, John and Shannon. Let's see what questions you have. Yes.
While we're waiting, again, 8 p.m. tonight, you can go see the full show.
It's only 24 minutes, so it won't take up a whole lot of time.
Oh, thanks for sharing this with us, folks. I had 2 questions. You mentioned about how certain constellations can only be seen under certain conditions or at certain times of the year. Was there recommendations or preferences as to what time of the year for us to present this to our audiences?
So that was something that Beth and I talked about, and the narrative was written so that you can show the show at any time. Okay. I believe most star stories happen sort of in winter to early spring. Mm-hmm. So like we're going to be taking our portable up to the UP to show the show up there. Mm-hmm. And that we kind of talked that would be a good time for that reason, but it is okay to show at any time of the year.
Okay, and did you have, for those of us who present things in hour blocks, did you have recommendations or preferences for what we would include with the Sky content for our live stuff, either before or after? Yeah.
No, I would say do whatever you want to do. But I was just going to say real quick, there's all the different constellations that are in there. There's only one that we really don't show, and that's the water puma. And we mention the water puma. I'm sure there's other ones we don't show, but the ones that we mention but don't show is the water puma. And we do outline the stars that are used for the water puma. We don't have any artwork for that. So you'll see just the star outline, or like the little circles coming up indicating the stars. But that's the only one that's not shown.
I would have a comment to add on some of that, and that would be to engage your local community members. So doing it with the community is going to be the absolute best, awesome thing. So.
I think we have about 1 minute to wrap up for questions and then transition to the next one.
Hi, I'm Nicolette. I'm from Ball State University, in case you haven't met me yet. I really loved your presentation so far, and I can't wait to see it. I have one question and then possibly a follow-up, depending on how you answer the first one. So, are you familiar with Name ExoWorlds 2022 at all? Do you know what that program is from the IAU?
I might have heard of it, but I don't know if I know much about it. Do you?
Okay, really briefly, you and I can talk about it in depth later. I would love to talk to you about it. Ball State is doing a similar version, and there's a list of exoplanets that the IAU found from James Webb that we want to name officially. These would be recognized names across the nation and the world. And Ball State's doing something similar with the Lakota tribe, and there are some outreach things that are required in the rules, and using a Lakota native if we choose to use the Lakota tribe. And I feel that this counts as an outreach, and if you would like to form a team and participate in that, I'd love to talk to you both about it later.
All right, well, thank you, Nicolette. That was really helpful at the end there. Thanks, Shannon and John, once again.
Just a quick, brief announcement. I've
Sure.
just been informed that the gender-neutral bathroom out here has been unlocked, so if anyone needs it, they can go out this way.
All right, and now Paula Epstein from the Michigan Science Center.
All right. Good morning, everyone. As she said, my name is Paulette Epstein. I'm the Director of Science and Theater's Staff Astronomer at the Michigan Science Center. I'm also a volunteer NASA Solar System Ambassador. So we were able to get a portable planetarium through the Institute of Museum and Library Science or Services IMLS grant. So we had a pretty old star lab. It had seen better days, and it had more stars. It had more false stars than it had real stars in it because of how just bad shape it ended up being. So the cylinders were getting harder and harder to come by, and so we decided to put in for, we actually decided to put in for 2 grants, a NASA grant and an IMLS grant, and we got both, but I'm only talking about one today. The NASA grant doesn't actually start until, or it didn't start until much more recently. But so we have a Digistar Lite portable planetarium. And with this portable planetarium, our goal was to bring the universe to you. So we were bringing the universe to places around the state of Michigan. And when we applied for this grant, we of course had our beautiful logic model for that. So using our program staffing costs, all of that kind of stuff was our matching funds, because IMLS grants are federal funds, so you do have to provide a match for those. And so we've spent tons and tons and tons of time on this so far. But the grant itself actually supplied the funding for the portable system itself. So we have done a couple of different types of programs with our portable. We have gone to schools in the Metro Detroit area, schools and summer camps. We went to libraries around Metro Detroit, and we also went to libraries up in northern Michigan and into the UP. So we have gone to, I think, 9 different sites so far, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. So we're trying to reach a lot of students. Our grant ended up, or our program ended up starting a little bit late because we were waiting for equipment to make its way to us. So we, instead of a 3-month lead time, we had a 6-month lead time, and it just took us a little bit longer to get started with everything. But we have, like I said, Digistar Lite with Digistar 7, so we have the sort of work power of the Digistar 7. And we also have a Go Dome. So we call our a standard Go Dome without the rings. So we call ours the Discovery Dome. And here's one of our or 2 of our locations. One of these is the main branch library in Detroit, and another one I think is Bowen Library. So our traveling science program is funded in part by Aramco of the Americas. So we have the Aramco Traveling Science poster right outside of our portable. We did end up going with a 6-meter dome, and I will say that that was a good choice and a bad choice at the same time, because there are very few places that have ceilings taller than 12 feet. So we have to work with libraries and schools and all of that have those taller ceilings. Luckily, most of the libraries that we already worked with have taller ceilings to be able to accommodate the dome. So this is my colleague and our traveling science van. So we load up this van and take it out to various areas. This was actually right before she went on the UP trip. So we took it up to the UP for a week, and we are very proud that we got it into the van because Star Labs were heavy, digital systems are heavier. And so we actually did end up purchasing a ramp to get it in and out of the van that we have. So here is an image inside of our dome. So this was one of the first schools that we did. I think it was Cornerstone. At the very, very end of the school year, they were having their final presentation of the year. So we got the dual chassis system, and this is actually an inner city school. These kids have not really seen the nighttime sky, other than the 10 stars that you can see from downtown Detroit. So they had a really fantastic time. This one is the younger group that we had in there. It's always good to make sure that you know how old the kids are going to be, because when we booked this, they told us that it was gonna be 3rd through 5th grade, and it ended up being kindergarten through 3rd grade. And so it was an interesting way to change things around a little bit. So the other nice thing about the digital system is that we can actually take pictures inside of it, and this projector is not bright enough to see it, but you can actually, if you want to see this image, you can ask me later to see it on my phone or my computer, but you can see my colleague actually doing the show inside of the portable. So the shows that we're doing right now, so we have our Discovery Dome Portable. We are doing What's Up, Your Guide to the Night Sky. So that is our all ages show, talking about what you can see in the nighttime sky. Expedition Solar System. Yes, Carissa, we stole the name. Stole the name and totally changed the plot of the show. So that one is for our middle school students when we're talking about scale and size of our solar system and beyond. And then we ended up, the summer reading theme this summer was about oceans. And so we went, okay, we just got this portable, we need to deliver programs, we have to do something about oceans. So we did a show called Worlds of Water. So we start deep in our oceans, and we make our way to some solar system objects that might have had water, may have water, and then probably do have water. And then we went out to other planets in other solar systems to see what an ocean world might look like around another star. All of these shows will be available with educator guides on the Digistar Cloud when I finish notating and I got this picture from here. So they will be available on the Digistar Cloud for anyone who is interested. And the educator guides will also be available probably by the end of this year. So I was working really hard on this project, and all of a sudden I had to spend 6 weeks installing an exhibit or developing and installing an exhibit instead. So I have not finished the educator guides yet, but they should be available by the end of this year. So we did use, for the underwater show, we did use, this was on the Digistar Cloud. I think this is from ESO in Belize. And that's actually how they walk into the dome, is with the scuba divers swimming above them. So it's kind of a fun, calming show for sure. So far we've done 9 programs off-site. We actually have a program today at one of the libraries. So with the Detroit Public Libraries, we have been also bringing solar telescopes. So we'll have the solar scopes out today and the portable out today. The other like 2 library programs in Metro Detroit were booked like during my vacation too. So like, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get to any of those, but I wrote all the shows and everything for them. We have 2 to 3 already booked for the end of the year, but the school year just started, so we're definitely going to get many more than that. And we have done 3 programs on site. So we did 2 for our summer campers and actually 1 during our annual fundraiser. So it was kind of nice to see all of our donors in cocktail attire walking into our portable planetarium and coming out in their hairs all like static electricity. And, so we have done, we still have a little bit of a ways to go to finish up our program. The funding period for this one ends at the end of this year, but we said that the program itself will continue beyond this year, so we'll be able to hit those outcomes that we were hoping for. And then those that are not familiar with the state of Michigan, we have, of course, we have a few folks, or a few places that we visit down here in the Detroit metro area. We stopped in Traverse City on our way up to the UP. We went to Munising, Houghton, Ontonagon, and made our way back down through Petoskey on the way back. So we at the Michigan Science Center, there's 83 counties in the state of Michigan. There are other locations around Michigan, but we are really trying to bring these programs to both the rural and urban communities specifically, because they're so underserved in the UP and in the Detroit metro area, that's where our focus really is. And we hope to next year be able to do some more of the portable programs up in the Upper Peninsula. So we go up there for 2 weeks every year, and we were only able to hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sites up there. So. All right. If you have any questions, or you can either ask a question at the Google slide thing. See if anybody asked any questions. Nope. That is okay. But also this QR code has my contact information. If you wanted to go ahead and scan that, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. If you are interested in the educator guides for the shows that we are producing, please reach out. I'd be happy to share them. I'd be happy to share the scripts with anybody if they wanted to try and create something with their own system. And if you don't have a Digistar planetarium, but like I said, this should be on the Digistar cloud. I'm going to say by the end of the year. I'm going to give myself some time because it's been a very hectic year. Yes.
Hi, I have a mobile dome with Digistar as well, and I was wondering if you would be interested in maybe some reciprocal exchange of programs in the future.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I will translate them for you.
Yeah. So one of the goals with getting this portable planetarium is actually to be able to do dome casting, so that we can take the dome into the community and cast programs and stuff like that in rural Michigan. And you might think rural Michigan doesn't really have internet, and that's mostly true. But the libraries always do. That's where the community goes to get high-speed internet, so the infrastructure is there. And so we would love to, as we continue to grow this program, and hopefully upgrade our dome at some point, like our fixed dome at some point. We would love to do dome casting opportunities with our portable as well. We specifically got Digistar 7 in there so that we would have that ability. Any other questions?
And this is, unless it's quick, this is our last question because we have about 1 minute to transition to the next speaker.
I'm just wondering, how has your dome held up after all of these places that you've gone to? Is it holding up pretty well at this point? I'm very curious about that.
Yes, our dome has been holding up pretty good. We're really careful when we put it away. Very careful when we put it away. We're very careful about the floor. We're like, you have to sweep. You absolutely have to sweep. There's no way around it. Like, you have to sweep and mop that floor, or you have to vacuum that floor, or we're not setting it up. We're very, very careful when we put it away. And we actually purchased a hockey bag on wheels to put our dome inside of. So it comes with this, like, kind of flimsy duffel bag and because the dome itself is so heavy, like, you gotta hoist it into the van and all that stuff. So we got a hockey bag on wheels so that we can wheel it up and down the ramp that we purchased for the van.
All right, well, let's give another thanks to Paulette. And now I'll introduce Sarah Schultz and Jacob Karsten from Minnesota State University, Moorhead.
Kind of nervous, so don't judge me harshly. Thanks. All right, so this is laser camp from AVI, not ATV. That was a don't know what happened in the schedule sort of thing, so typo autocorrect. Laser camp from AVI. I'm Jacob Karsten. I'm an undergrad at MSUM, Moorhead State University of Minnesota, and I'm being assisted by the Dr. Sarah Schultz. Okay, so what is laser camp? Laser camp is a 5-day long camp that is centered around a 3-watt RGB laser diode. Nothing crazy. And over these 5 days in the camp, the students learn about different properties of light, explore the science, the physics, and all the things in between about light. And over the course of the week, they get to create their own show with the laser diode. So they learn different properties, they start to incorporate things into their show, and they, at the end of the week, get to show their show, if you will, to their peers. So what do you get when you purchase Laser Camp from AVI? You get this really wonderful kit that comes in the size of a pizza box. If you were walking around in the sponsor hall, you probably saw it. It's a wonderful kit. It comes with a lot of things. Something to note about it is that you can, sorry, I got distracted. Everything in the camp you can do from these kits. If it's not like a printout or anything, those come as a PDF. But all the experiments, all the demos, all the things like that, you can do with everything in this kit. They're very compact and very well thought out. Some of the activities included when you purchase the camp, it comes with activities to go through with the kids. It's centered around 6th to 8th.
Yeah, like middle school.
When you purchase it, it's 6th to 8th grade middle school area. So a lot of these activities are centered around that age. But what did I do with it? Over the summer, this last summer, MSUM has been working with the camp in a number of different ways, making it more user-friendly for the instructor, because that's always a struggle. Expanding the age range. We thought middle school was a great target, but we wanted to broaden it. We wanted to make it for younger ages and for even college level. And then with adding the bigger range, we needed to also find additional labs. So the first task, if you will, was to take the binder that you get when purchasing Laser Camp, and we converted it into a slideshow. The reason we wanted to make it a slideshow is that it seems easier to distribute than a binder, if you will. We can throw it in something and just send it to you. Also, slideshows are kind of the new thing now. Binder is kind of clunky in my mind, and you don't want to go back to reference it all the time. And if you have a slideshow, kids can read it. You can display it while you're doing the demos, and they can reference back to it and they don't have to ask you. This also gave us a chance to polish things that we thought could use a little polishing, or sift some things out. Expanding the age ranges. We want making the camp available to a wider age group. So what we did is we broke it into 6th to 8th grade, 9th to 12th grade, and then college level. The lower two sets, so 6th, 8th, 9th, 12th, have the same basic structure as that it consists of a camp, and you have resources, and you create a show. But the level of difficulty in the labs and demos jump. So, and then college level is more of a lesson plan. We did this because college professors usually have their own lesson plan. Like, they don't want to veer from a ton. So we wanted to create something that was more modular, so you can just pull, they can just pull from it and incorporate it into their own material. Here's a kind of basic layout. It's like I said, the 6th to 12th is pretty similar in what you would get through this structure, and then the college level stuff is a short lesson plan, some instructor notes, lab guides, and material lists. So the thing we found the most difficult was expanding our experiments. The college level stuff is obviously more difficult. Like, I'm an undergrad, so it's kind of incorporating my labs that I thought I really enjoyed and could be mixed in with the light aspect. I'm really good buddies with our optics professor, so he was like all for this. So he gave us a huge list. This is like scratching the iceberg here. And yeah, many more. We also presented this presentation in the summer for LIPS, and we got a bunch of recommendations there, and that was very good to see.
So if you have any ideas that aren't on this list or you'd like to add, please let us know.
That's later.
Oh, sorry. I didn't read through the slides.
Yeah. We're still working through the different slideshows. They are quite extensive. When we converted the binder to a slideshow, it was 52 slides. So it was very long, and we wanted to break that down a little bit because it is a week long, but 52 slides is a lot. So we're breaking that down, and then we're also organizing into a folder structure. So you get one big folder, it starts you on one page, it says start here, a whole write out for it. It tells you what age group you want to go into, it gives you all the resources you need. It also has all the original resources that we got. So, yep. And then what's the plan for the future? Continue to work through the slides, adding more labs. We want to have a finished product in the near future. Production has slowed down just a wee bit because class started for me, and it's very labor intensive, but hopefully that will change in the near future. So as Dr. Schultz was saying, if you have any ideas or experiments that you really enjoy and has to do with optics, or light, if you will, please contact us. Send us your ideas, send us an experiment that you like, or something like that. Or if you just have any other general questions that we don't get to before this. Wow, I really sped through that.
Yeah, that's good, that's good.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to mention too was that this kit is usable out of the box. So AVI has done a great job developing it. We just wanted to play with it more and see what we could do with it. So we kind of just wanted to push it beyond what it already was. And Joanne was really all about that, so she was excited that we were going to play with it. And so yeah, you can get it just straight out the box. You can go and do your camp. But I wanted to make sure that the students had an opportunity to really get to know it so that they could be the ones who are facilitating the camps and figure out ways that they can use it in their research, and we can expand and use it across our university as well. The idea here was that it's kind of, for me, the hope is that it's going to be kind of a stepping stone towards getting our full laser system and figuring out ways that we're using it beyond just like a revenue generator for our planetarium, but also getting unique experiences for our college students. So getting music students and art students in there, getting physics students, and I mean, just kind of running the gamut and getting a bigger cross section than we normally would get. So anyway, perfect.
Yeah, and then, yeah, questions and comments. And I also left Joanne's email.
All right, thanks. Yeah, we have plenty of time for questions. I'll make my way back there.
So Jacob was super nervous. So can we give him a round of applause, please? He's been dreading this, but he did a great job.
Hi, I was just curious to the length of the programs that they do. Is it one song, 2 songs?
I suppose it would depend on what you want them to do, but I think it's mostly geared toward doing like one song. But I mean, if you've got a student who has, a few songs and they're really gung-ho, and it depends on how many students you have too. So you can get as many kits as you need. There's a basic bundle for the equipment, but then the kits are designed for 1 to 3 students, whatever. And so you can get as many kits as you want. And our goal was to do about 30 students in a class. And so we'd have like a computer lab that we'd be able to have them in to work on that stuff. So if you have just a handful of students, they could have a more extended production if you wanted to.
Hey.
Hey, Micah.
This is kind of maybe a weird question, but maybe it's good. I don't know. Like, one of the things that I was thinking about is you put a laser anything in front of a student and they're just, ooh, ah, laser, let me play with it. This is fun. This is cool. But in a way, that's what they're supposed to do in making a laser show. So, like, was that a challenge? Was it not, like, of the students just goofing off with the lasers versus making a show? And, maybe it just worked good because that brought their enthusiasm, or did you have to, like, really curb them and wrangle them in or anything?
So we have not actually run it with a school, like a camp yet. This summer was just for development and getting us ready to be able to be running with it. We'll see, and we'll let you know. My hope is that, the enthusiasm will carry them through, but yeah.
I would like to add to that. We've done a few events for like Society of Physics students at Moorhead State, and we've like displayed the kits and we said, have fun. And it was actually pretty educational for them. They learned a lot of different properties, especially like diffraction. A lot of people don't know about diffraction, where you can split apart the beam because it's a whole bunch of photons. I won't get nitty gritty, but they actually had a lot of fun with it. It wasn't a lot of just goofing off. Something that I thought you were going to go to is safety. We also concern safety a lot because these lasers, I've recognized the lasers, can be very dangerous if you don't do things properly. And even the small laser pointers, you can still blind yourself if you do it wrong. So we do express safety a lot.
Thank you, Jacob, for actually bringing up Society of Physics students, because I am president of my chapter at Ball State, and I was actually going to ask you, and email you guys later, of course, but I was curious, what are your thoughts on the cost effectiveness? I'm aware that there's probably ways I can contact SPS and ask for maybe a grant or some help with that, or my department, but I'm looking for some ways maybe to wiggle that in and have that as an SPS used resource.
That's a tough one because, so for us, the way we were able to leverage it was, we already have like a summer camp system. It's called College for Kids on our campus. And so they were invested. We got the physics department to invest in it. So we got money from various locations around campus that could see themselves using it. And so if there are other departments or groups on campus that you think that might be interested in using it at some point in a lab or in an outreach experience or something, that would probably be your best way to do it. Otherwise, grants, of course, is, that's a good way to do it as well. And I want to say, too, because Jacob's going to be so embarrassed, when they first took the stuff out of the box, they set off the fire alarms in our building. And they're like, are we going to get fired? I'm like, no, I'll take the brunt. If I get fired, well, it's fine. But the fire department was actually they thought it was pretty cool. So I said, come back and check out the lasers when we've got it in the dome.
All right, we have 1 minute left for a quick question if you have one before moving on to the next.
I'll use this microphone because I'm right here. I just wanted to ask you about as far as like programming and what you're doing, because at my old facility we were starting to toy with using the Cove lights for kind of a lighting demo and the RGB and giving kids a filter. And I wondered if you were having plans on utilizing maybe your Cove lights or your planetarium system to like supplement that program.
Absolutely. That's something that I've wanted to do for a while. We're still kind of figuring out how to do more programming with our Cove lights. But this would definitely work well with that, because I mean, you're talking about, one of the examples is the M&Ms under the lights and trying to figure out what color they are. So that's a great idea too. Yeah.
Well, let's give another big round of applause to Jacob. I think everyone will agree you did a fantastic job. And of course, Sarah. Great job, Sarah. All right, so our next presenter, we'll give her a moment to get up to the stage there. It's Jennifer Sellers, so let's bring that over.
Completely like crashes. Uh-oh. Do you go from here? Yeah. Let's run with it. Where are we? And then where is it? We do not. Should have thought about that. Okay, well, we don't have an audio connection. But, oh, and also, why aren't we up there? We'll put you up. Okay. Nothing? All right. Yeah, my computer's super special. It doesn't. But maybe we'll get lucky. So hello, welcome. Thanks for coming. Oh. Okay, yeah, we can do that during the audio part. Okay, so I'm going to talk about engaging students in soundtrack composition during a summer camp. So I am Jennifer Sellers, as they already said, and I'm the Director of Innovative Learning at SUNY Corning Community College. So I oversee our Nature Center, the Eileen Collins Observatory, and our new Digital Dome Theater, which is what you might call a planetarium. So one of the programs that we've had going since 2016 is a summer camp that's entirely for middle school girls. And we call it Full Steam Ahead. And it's science, technology, engineering, art, health, and math. So the picture there is we had therapy dogs come in, and obviously that was probably the most popular workshop. So they are on campus for 8 hours a day for 5 whole days. We do offer before and after care. And they get lunch on campus, which they love. And so it's like a whole college experience where they go from class to class. The workshops are all led by faculty and more recently some community partners. So some other nonprofit organizations come in and do presentations, or In the case of this year, Corning Incorporated came in and did a couple presentations. It's low cost, so we get a lot of grant funding, and we're able to offer scholarships for about half of the students. Otherwise, it's $100 for the whole week. They do get lunch, they get snacks. I provide them free before and after care, and they get t-shirts. So I think it's a pretty good deal. And it was 4th and 5th grade the second week, 6th and 7th grade the first week. And I'm a little bit flexible on what that means. So we had some students who had just completed the 3rd grade and were going into 4th grade, and then some who had already completed 7th grade were going into 8th grade. But they were divided roughly on that line of 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th. All right, so what did we do? So right away, when the new Digital Dome Theater opened, our music professor, Will Wickham, who is a professional composer, was like, this is gonna be so cool. I know there is something that we can do in here. And so when I sent out the announcement about looking for faculty for Full Steam Ahead, he goes, I wanna do something in the Dome, I don't know what. So I had only just learned how to use it. And I was like, let me tell you about this thing called Show Builder. It'll let us add a soundtrack into a show. And so he looked at it and he's like, yeah, I think that this is the way to go. It's gonna be really fun, it's gonna be interactive. We want it to have meaningful contributions both on the soundtrack side as well as on what's on the Dome. So here is a video that hopefully will work. Yeah, I don't know where the speakers are.
Right in the back. Is your sound up all the way? Yeah.
Sounds up all the way.
Okay. Do you want to start the slide over?
So that was just one scene from the show, and I will tell you how we got to there. So we used Show Builder to crowdsource the creation of the show with the older group. So with the older group, Will and I had this idea. We were like, well, we want to fly off of the planet, and then what happens from there is up to them. So we let them kind of decide that, and I very quickly in Show Builder was adding the scenes as we went through. Interestingly, after we saw Bob Browneroo's presentation, the girls all chose the Aurora. They wanted to go visit the Aurora, so I guess it really is that popular. So we created that real quick. It's about 4 minutes long. They watched it without sound. Will then came in and he presented a lesson about why sound is important in films and commercials and everything, like what it's used for, why we would care. So then he divided them into small groups and gave them each a scene while I tidied up our Show Builder so that it would flow a little smoother. They had tablets that were preloaded with a mixing software and 15-second segments that Will had already created. So he had created all of these sound segments that would go well together. There was no overlap, so that was kind of crazy. They were all unique, but they had some similar themes to them so that they would sound well when they were mixed together in various orders. So that's what they did. They came up with those and they came back together and they kind of saw what they looked like together and were able to make some final edits. And then we played it all the way through. They edited it a couple more times, of course, especially our final group. They wanted it to be like a really dramatic ending, so they did that. And then I shared it with public shows for the entire month of August. So right before we did our public show, we would watch this 4-minute clip. What happens in the show is that we start off about noon that day. We set the sun, we come to astronomical twilight, we rise off of the Earth, we watch it kind of rotate in space for a little while, and then we zoom down into the aurora, and then the aurora is like all surrounding you. So a pretty show to go with a pretty soundtrack. It's all very haunting sounding. And the girls liked it so much that even like a week ago, one of the girls came with her parents and was like, "Can we see it again?" So they're all really excited to be able to show it to their parents. And they wanted to show it to like anyone in the world who would watch it. So then what's next? So Will really liked the way that it went. And so he was like, well, I want to do it for my classes, but I want them to write their own music. So we've got a composition class right now. It's a small class. There's only, I think maybe like a dozen students. And it's a 20-minute show that they are animating or making a soundtrack for. And it's a meditation, so this one's got an extra layer that it has my narration of the meditation. I happen to be certified to teach meditation and yoga as well, so that's something that we'd been doing once a month in the Dome anyways, so then having one that was more permanent than my just turn the stars on and lead a meditation. So that is going to be loaded onto the cloud when it's done. They met with me right before their break week, and they watched the show again. They had kind of a rough draft that they're planning to debut next week with the show for me, and then we'll go from there making some edits with the goal of it being done by the end of the semester. So now here's another clip from the show. Apologies for the cell phone video. I really didn't know how I was going to record it so I could show it in this flat presentation.
You have 5 minutes.
So now it's question time.
Hi, when you were working with these, with the students, like with the show build and everything, did you have a lab space set up, or did you just have everybody crowded around in the dome?
We had them crowded around in the dome, but when they did the soundtrack part, because they were listening to music and they all had different music, we divided them into different spaces, and they each had a tablet.
Thank you. I'm wondering about your meditation scheme. You said once a month only. Is that meeting the needs of your students, and how well is it attended? Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that's a good question. So once classes started, we've just been doing it once a month because that fits in with my schedule. Students can sign up for my class, though it meets twice a week, so they have that option as well. And then bi-weekly, I do wellness tips for our supervisors across campus. So our students, though, need more counseling.
I found that fascinating that the aurora was such a compelling visual for them. But I'm thinking, like in the orchestra, you have the planets, Mars, Venus, and all that. And I do wonder what they would do with that, like if they were to try to visualize the sound composition for each of the planets. So you have Jupiter up, and then it transitions to Saturn. I'm just curious what you think about, Aurora is great, but what would you think that they would do differently with planets?
That was something that Will and I talked about and that we really wanted to do. But for this, because it was just a 75-minute workshop, we didn't feel like we could really do something like that. But with his classes, I think that he's interested in doing that. And maybe even more so with some of the public groups that he works with, because I know that he's a part of the local symphony. So that might be more appropriate for them than our students.
All right, there's 1 minute before we have to move on to our next presentation. Any other questions? All right, well, let's thank Jennifer. And we will finish up our morning with Laser Fantasy. Jay Heck, your name was not on the list, so Jay Heck from Laser Fantasy. That's all I saw, so. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be back together in person again this year. Thanks, Kevin and Mark and the GLPA leaders for all their effort in putting this conference together. I'm Jay Heck, co-owner and creative director of Laser Fantasy. Cody and I are here to demonstrate our laser show systems and shows. Traditionally, our laser systems are installed in domes, but they're flexible enough to work in all sorts of venues, such as this lovely auditorium. Laser shows are a great way for music lovers to gather together in your theater for a shared experience. They can celebrate their favorite current musical act or relive a blast from the past. Our show catalog now includes a Laser Lizzo and Elton John. We've recently released season